Good evening and welcome. I'm Dr. Dawn Bentley, the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, and I'm thrilled to have you here. We were sort of having bets among the presenters who do some of these in different districts, how many folks would show up, and they're both very impressed with our numbers tonight. So that made me feel good because I was kind of bummed. I was hoping we'd have a couple hundred out to talk about this really important topic. So we are co-sponsoring this learning opportunity between a number of agencies, the town of Boxborough, the town of Acton. We have Danny's Place Youth Service, Katie Gorsica, the executive director up there, and Catherine Lee representing. We also have, where is Cheryl? Is Cheryl in here or is Cheryl out in the hallway? Cheryl Ball from the town of Acton Health Department is out there as well. And we also were able to pull in Kim Manning, who is the program coordinator at Boston Children's Hospital. So some of you were playing with some of the items that she had out there in the hallway and probably have some of her handouts as well. So we were lucky enough to sort of pull her in and have her available also. And all of you have no doubt seen constant information on social media and in the news about vaping and the trends and sort of what we're learning about it, which initially was sort of launched as a completely harmless sort of a thing, right? So as a parent myself of 5th and 8th grade boys, I would really like to bury my head in the sand and pretend that it's never going to be a problem and I don't need to know anything about it. But between that and my district position here, knowing, a lot of you pulled this is from our 2018 YRBS data, you can see our kids are vaping. Starting in 6th grade, at least 1% of them reported having done so 30 days prior to the survey when it was administered last April. And there's also been a large public health campaign around it, sponsored both by Governor Baker's office and the Massachusetts, I'm going to get this wrong, the Department of Public Health are doing some things. So you'll start to see signs. There's some of them in the lobby up there. So a huge public health campaign awareness with some really nice posters that we're putting in all of our elementary schools, and then some clings that go in the mirrors on the bathrooms that just have quick sorts of facts on them for kids to sort of be taking in as they're washing their hands and, getting ready to go back to class. So enter tonight's presenter, who is Mary Cole. And Mary is the program coordinator for the Greater Boston Tobacco-Free Community Partnership. That is a mouthful. And it's funded by the Massachusetts Tobacco Cessation and Prevention Program, which is dedicated to educating residents like us on all things tobacco. Mary has her master's in public health from Boston University and is a certified health education specialist. During her time at BU, she developed an evidence-based intervention to reduce youth initiation of e-cigarettes that included a school curriculum, peer education, and a photo voice project. In her current position, Mary spends most of her time educating parents, teachers, coalitions, and boards of health about e-cigarettes and emerging tobacco products. It seems like there's a new one every day. Municipal tobacco policies, which I know Acton at least has been working on, and the tobacco and vaping industry tactics to hook another generation of kids on nicotine. So a few sort of items of business. First of all, those of you who are just joining us, we're thrilled you're here, but we would love it if you could come closer. There's a lot of things that we're going to pass around tonight, and we'd like to not have to walk all over creation to do it. So if you could come up, that'd be fantastic. At the end of the presentation, so we are videotaping it, before we start with a Q&A session, we will turn the videotaping off. We know a lot of folks aren't comfortable asking questions if they know they're going to be taped, and we want you to be able to ask with some great folks here. And so Mr. Drinkwater's back there videotaping, but he will stop. So when it comes time for Q&A, there'll be a couple mics that we'll pass around and get ready to go. So we know that combating this rising trend in vaping, which is happening here in our district, is going to take all of us. So we're thrilled you're here tonight, and I hope you'll join me in welcoming Mary.
Okay, I got the clicker to work. So again, my name's Mary. So a little bit more about my job. It's really confusing and there's a lot of long names to go with it. But basically, I'm funded by the Department of Public Health under the Massachusetts Tobacco Cessation and Prevention Program. And so basically my role is the Tobacco-Free Community Partnership, and I like to say I'm a friend to these 56 communities that I serve for anything to do with tobacco. So I work on helping people quit tobacco and nicotine, providing smoke-free environments, and also prevention of nicotine among young people. So I'm a free resource because I'm funded by the state. And really all I've been doing, as I'm sure you can imagine, is similar presentations to this on vaping, because vaping is an epidemic at this point, which I'll talk about a little bit more. So here's just an overview of kind of what I'll talk about today. It's very comprehensive, so I probably will answer most of your questions. And so it's a bigger crowd, so you guys will probably hold off questions anyways till the end. But again, I will probably answer your questions within here, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. And really, just some key things I want you guys to go away with today is to know the facts. So to correct those misperceptions that are out there about vaping, to know that it's harmful, especially for young people, and also to understand that the tobacco and vaping industries, that they are targeting youth specifically. So this didn't just happen. This was done on purpose by the industry to make money. So that's kind of what we're gonna go over today. So how we'll start is actually just talking about some products and also the epidemic. I added some slides. I'm gonna talk about the epidemic first. So the Surgeon General, he declared e-cigarette use among young people an epidemic in December. Any school, high school in Massachusetts would also tell you it's an epidemic at the school. Many would say it's almost in crisis mode as well, because so many young people are vaping, specifically in the bathrooms as well. Those are kind of started to be called the Juul room or the Juul lounge, because Juul is a brand of e-cigarettes that's very popular, so that's what we're hearing there. So it's really taken over schools, and it's getting into middle schools as well. So let's just go over a little bit of data first. So this is our 2017 Massachusetts data. We have about 1 in 5 high school youth using e-cigarettes in the past 30 days, which is considered regular use. And that's compared to about 6% of youth that are using cigarettes. So it's a lot higher of those youth using e-cigarettes and these vaping products. And what's really interesting is that, so this graph, it shows from 1995, and the red is cigarette use, and the black is any tobacco product use, and then that purple is e-cigarette use. So this shows that we had, about 35% of high schoolers in Massachusetts using cigarettes back in 95. And just watch how that drastically decreases till 2017. So cigarette use was pretty normal back in the day, right? Especially, I'm sure, for parents nowadays, it was pretty normal. And from a public health perspective, watching that decline, the decreasing cigarette use is one of public health's greatest successes. So we put in policies, we created smoke-free workplaces, we taxed cigarettes, we created all of this media to educate people about the harms of cigarettes, how cigarettes kill 1 in 2 people that use them. And so right now, most youth would say, "Ugh, cigarettes, no, that's gross. It smells bad, it's gonna kill you, like it's not cool. It's really not cool." However, they just really don't associate these e-cigarettes or vape products with cigarettes at all. It's totally different. It seems like this tech thing that's cool, that's harmless. And so that's why we saw this big spike. So about 1 in 5 youth are using e-cigarettes, way more than other tobacco products. So that's kind of where we're at today with youth using these products. And also quickly, just our middle school data. In 2017, we had about 1 in 10 middle schoolers who had ever tried e-cigarettes. From what I'm hearing from middle schooler or from people that work at middle schools is they are starting to see this more in middle schools as well. And we've heard as young as 4th or 5th graders have tried this stuff too. So it's kind of scary just to hear, how young these people are trying this stuff. Okay, so some vaping 101. Do you guys recognize what that product is? Anyone? Yeah, that's the Juul. So we'll talk about that a lot. That's important to know because that's the most popular e-cigarette brand. So with these vape products, it's kind of complicated because they come in all different shapes, sizes, colors. And there's a lot of different names for them. But these are all different types of e-cigarettes and vape pens. They can look like pens. They can look like USB drives. They can look like school supplies. They can look like highlighters, or they might even look like a typical tobacco product. And so they might look different, but basically they all work the same way. So these are battery-operated devices that heat up, that's typically lithium battery, that heats up this metal coil. That metal coil, so there's the metal coils in the atomizer. Then that metal coil heats up this form of liquid, this e-liquid that we talk about this with the nicotine, or as I'll talk about more, THC oil if it's marijuana. So it heats that up, and then it's inhaled. It produces this sort of vapor aerosol, and then it's inhaled and then exhaled. So that's how those all work. So again, it's inhaling, exhaling from a battery-operated device, and it's inhaling for this nicotine, this aerosol. That's typically called vapor. So something important to note, again, there's a lot of different names. So these could be called e-cigs, they could be called e-hookahs, vape pens. Bigger systems are called tanks or mods. Youth will not call these e-cigarettes or e-cigs. Older people call these e-cigarettes. Young people would never say they use an e-cigarette. That's not cool. Instead, they will call it probably like a vape pen or a vape, or by the brand name, like Juul. So Juul's the brand of e-cigarettes. Juul's so popular that instead of saying vaping, they say juuling. So I'm juuling, the act of using a Juul. There's some other brand names like Bo, Blue, Mark 10, Vuse, Suron. I'll talk about some as well as we move on. But so that's kind of the basics, how there's all these different things and names for them. And now you know a few. So when we think of e-cigarettes, we think of these e-cigarettes, how they started when they were kind of created for older people that smoke as a way to help them quit. That's kind of why they started. And that's why we see that disposable e-cigarette that looks like a cigarette, right? That's kind of what we all think of. However, these e-cigarettes rapidly started to change. And so for the first generation of e-cigarettes, they're disposable. So they come with the e-liquid already in it. They're pre-charged. And then once you're done with it and it runs out, you just throw the whole thing out. So that's how those work. So then we started to see all these different flavors in these disposable e-cigarettes. These skinny ones as well tend to be called e-hookahs. So like a portable hookah. That's kind of what we're seeing with those. And I think what I'm going to do is I have this stuff all in a box. And to make it my life easier, I think I'm just going to put it all in a box and you guys can look at it. But yeah, so this is e-hookahs right here. And I'm just going to hold on to my Juul for me. So I want to show some of these first. Okay, and then next we have vape pens. These specific vape pens that we see here that have that glass that I have right here, these are typically used for marijuana. So that liquid form of marijuana, so the THC that's derived from it. So this one was confiscated from a school. So another reason you can tell this is used for marijuana is that it's a little bit darker. So it's not clear. So the ones with nicotine in it are more clear, and this one is darker. So that's used for marijuana. I just lost where I put my clicker. Oh, I put it. It looks like all the other vaping products, and so I put it in there and I couldn't find it. Okay. So those vape pens are refillable, and so are these tank systems that we see as well. These are called tanks and mods. And so there is kind of this trend when there were vape shops, and there are these like big tank and mod systems that they have different pieces. They're customizable. They're interchangeable. You buy e-liquid separately that I'll talk about in a little bit, and you put it in. And you can buy all these different flavors and stuff with it. These tank systems specifically, they produce a lot of clouds. So like a lot of that vapor that we talk about, it produces a lot of that. So I like to say if you ever are driving or walking and a huge cloud of something like immerses over you, it's probably one of these. It creates really big clouds. Also with these tank systems, and what was kind of popular with that whole vaping trend, is creating those like clouds and designs with the clouds in it and like competitions. So that kind of was a trend with these as well. And it's also a trend currently. And I have a video that I'll show too. And then what really took off is we like to call these are rechargeable, same with the tank systems and the vape pens. But these are rechargeable e-cigarettes that are also called Mod Pods. So these are like the Juul. They're called Mod Pods. See if I can put that there. Because that e-liquid that I was talking about is in this pod. So these are rechargeable. The e-liquid's in this pod, and then once you finish the e-liquid in the pod, then you throw the whole pod out. So you see how these are all kind of different? But people really like this because it's easy. You're done with the pod, you throw it out, you fill it back up. It's really easy. It's a lot easier than filling it up with this e-liquid. It's a little cleaner too. And I'm going to talk about the Juul a little bit more in depth later. But again, so what's in these e-liquids that I'm talking about? So this is kind of one of the big misperceptions that people have. People tend to think it's water and food flavorings. That's not true. There's actually chemicals in there. So the chemicals that are in there are propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, nicotine, and food flavorings. Those food flavorings are actually dangerous for you and can create carcinogens as well. So this is what's in those liquids. And again, they can come in that e-liquid form or in the pod form. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about risks that this poses once it's heated up and inhaled. Something to note about these e-liquids is that they're currently not regulated by the FDA. So 99% of these contain nicotine in them, according to the CDC, even if they say they don't. So this is my example. On the front, it says 0 nicotine. On the back, it says this does not contain nicotine. And then that last ingredient is nicotine. So they're not regulated by the FDA, so their ingredients don't have to be accurate. So it's kind of scary that it's kind of like the Wild West out there with these e-liquid products and what's in this stuff. All right, Juul. So Juul kind of perfected the e-cigarette, which is the reason why it took off. Juul's different because these other e-liquids and e-cigarettes, they use something called free-base nicotine. Juul uses salt-based nicotine. With that salt-based nicotine, you're actually able to feel that nicotine a lot more and a lot quicker. And so you get that buzz or that head rush from the nicotine in here. So Juul perfected that, and in this sleek design that's really cool, basically, with these great flavors. So I'm going to show, let me talk about this first. I'm going to show the video in 1 second, and I'll cue my person. But one thing with Juul that's really important to know that a lot of people don't know is that that little Juul pod that has the e-liquid, this pod, the nicotine in here is equivalent to 20 cigarettes or 1 pack of cigarettes. So like it's an insane amount of nicotine in here. Juul kind of started this like really high amount of nicotine. It's so high that graph on your right, so the European Union, they regulate the nicotine content in their products. And the Juul pod actually has 3 times the legal limit of nicotine than the EU allows. 3 times. So it's really insane the amount of nicotine that's in here. So Juul is highly addictive. These products are highly addictive, and other companies are starting to mimic these things like Juul. With Juul 2, where'd it go? Oh, I can't find it. I lost it. There's a charger, and it just connects magnetically right at the bottom. and I can't find it now. I swear I had it. But basically, you can charge this stuff right in your laptop. And that's kind of what you see right there. So it connects magnetically, and you can charge it right in your laptop. So now I'm going to cue to play this video.
In case you're new, everyone at my school juuls.
Something that is literally sweeping the nation. Everywhere I go, it is a whole thing.
Yo, what is going on, guys? What's up, guys?
Today's video is gonna be a Juul sesh. We got the mango pod.
The cool cucumber.
Fruit medley.
I've got this creme pod because I thought it would be festive.
It tastes great.
Well, if you want a head rush, definitely the Juul.
That's really strong.
My God, bro, give me the biggest neck bust.
Oh my God. The Juul challenge. You gotta hit this thing as many times as you can.
We're doing the Juul Hotbox Insane Nick Buzz Challenge, you dig?
I got some accessories.
Juul wraps.
Type in charging case for Juul.
Rolo bag.
Sorry, drop.
Ghost stick.
This one is watermelon. It is literally so good.
Okay, so that's from the Truth Initiative. So they're kind of like an anti-tobacco organization. So they've done a lot about cigarettes and educating youth about cigarettes and getting them angry that the industry is targeting them. And now, so they're doing stuff on vaping and Juul, as well, as you can see. So stuff from that video, it's kind of disturbing. A lot of people get upset after seeing that video because they see kind of what the kids are doing with it. I like showing it to adults and parents specifically because you can kind of see why it's cool, right? Like, it's fun. You can do those tricks with it. It's also with the Juul, you can see a lot of that vapor or the smoke that comes out, but you can also conceal it really easily. So some trends that I'm going to talk about that are happening is one thing for people to kind of vape in public or Juul in public. There's something called like stealth vaping, where you kind of hold in the vapor or the aerosol in your lungs for a while, and then you slowly exhale, so hardly no cloud shows, or you just hold it in your lungs, and then it's called zero vaping, and no vapor comes out at all. So you can kind of do it discreetly in public. Or something else you can do is blow it in your sleeve. So also from that video, what we saw was Juul challenges. So there was something where you saw a bunch of Juuls stacked on one another, and you inhale all of them, and then you try to get the Juul to light up red, which means that you've inhaled for 10 seconds, and you try to get all of them too, and that's called blinkers. So that's just some Juul challenges. And so what we're seeing from these Juul challenges is people getting Nick sick, which is too much nicotine. So what we're seeing with Nick sick is like heart palpitations, vomiting, lightheadedness, nausea. So we are seeing people intake way too much nicotine. And as we already know, Juul has a ton of nicotine, and then they're doing these competitions, and so that's happening as well. The other thing with this is dripping, which I should have mentioned when I was talking about, let me see, these tank systems. You can actually take them apart, and that atomizer with the metal coils, you can put that e-liquid directly on it, on the metal coils, which it makes it really hot, and then you can inhale. So that's called dripping. That's a trend as well, which is very dangerous because it can explode in your face. So that has happened as well. So again, these are just trends. It's not like everyone's doing this stuff, but it's just something to keep in mind. And the big thing to keep in mind, like I said, there's a ton of nicotine in this. And the reason that people like it is that buzz feeling. Nicotine's a stimulant. So it feels good. It takes about 10 seconds for that nicotine to rush to your head. And then it feels good. It's a stimulant. So that's what people like, and that's why they go back for more. Something that the video talked about too is that there's always new and emerging products. So Juul might be popular right now, but walk into a vape shop and let me tell you, there are insane things you will see in there. So like one of them they talked about is a Sur-On drop that I have here. It's on the bottom left. That seems to be popular. It feels good in your hands as well. So we're seeing ones that look like credit cards, the Sur-On Air. There's also a lot of Juul knockoffs too, ones that look like Juul, ones that have high nicotine concentration like Juul. When I went into this vape shop, they said that most companies are copying Juul's nicotine-based salt, making it a lot stronger and salt-based. So that's the trends that we're seeing. Okay, so this is one of the key takeaways I want you guys to go home with. So we talked about the nicotine. There's an insane amount of nicotine. And also that vapor, it's actually an aerosol. Everyone likes to call it water vapor. It's not water vapor. It's an aerosol. Aerosol is like a hairspray, right? So there's harmful chemicals that are in here that you're inhaling. Ultrafine particles that are sticking deep to the lungs. That's what's in here. There has been a lot of cancer-causing chemicals found in here. For example, that propylene glycol, which is the main ingredient in the e-liquid, when heated to a certain level, it creates formaldehyde, which is a known carcinogen. We also know there's things like benzene found in there, which is found in car exhausts. There's heavy metals like nicotine and lead, specifically that are likely from the metal coils in there too. And volatile organic compounds. And I kind of talked about the food flavorings as well that aren't safe. We know that the food flavoring diacetyl, which is in a lot of these products, is actually known to cause something called popcorn lung, which is an irreversible scarring of the lungs. So basically, these popcorn factory workers were working with diacetyl, and they all came down with this like irreversible lung disease, the scarring of the lungs with trouble breathing and things like that. And so that's associated with diacetyl. So we do know that about diacetyl. But basically, these are harmful chemicals that you're inhaling. And the tough piece is that we don't have long-term research on any of this, right? E-cigarettes are so new. So with cigarettes, we can say it's going to cause like all these cancers and diseases and COPD and this and that. But we can't say that for sure with e-cigarettes because we don't have any tests on them. They haven't been around long enough. The one thing that we do know a bit about is nicotine. So with nicotine, we know nicotine is highly, highly addictive, especially for young people. So that's a really big worry with here. So I like to ask people if they know anyone that currently smokes cigarettes. And if you do you know how old they were when they started smoking cigarettes? Most people will say like 13, 16, 15, all below 18. And there's a reason for that. It's because the adolescent brain is very susceptible to nicotine addiction. 9 out of 10 adults that smoke cigarettes, they started before their 18th birthday. So the younger you start, the more likely you are to get hooked for life. And so that's something that's very concerning with these young people that are using this. The other thing that we know with e-cigarettes from our research is that if a young person uses an e-cigarette, they are about 4 times more likely to move on to using cigarettes, combustible cigarettes, which, you know, these are youth who would have never used cigarettes in the first place. So that's a concern there. More about nicotine and the adolescent brain. So we know our teens' brains, that brain doesn't fully develop until in the mid-20s, right? And so what nicotine does is it actually interferes with brain development. It can chemically and structurally change the makeup of the brain. And so what nicotine does is it actually can impact judgment and impulse control. It can lead to mood disorders like depression. And it also disrupts the brain circuits that control learning. So we know nicotine, it really interferes with brain development in these young people, and it's really concerning. The other thing that we know is that nicotine is actually a gateway drug, and it primes the brain for addiction to other drugs like marijuana and cocaine. So this is all really concerning stuff with our young people using nicotine. Okay, these are questions I'm always asked, so I will go through them. Well, are e-cigarettes safe? No, you've gathered that. But the real question here is with adults using e-cigarettes, because people are under the understanding that it's a harm reduction piece for adults. And so let me just explain this a little bit. So first of all, if you don't use tobacco products, you should never use an e-cigarette ever. But if you are a tobacco user, what the Centers for Disease Control says is there's not as many carcinogens in e-cigarettes. So it's likely not as bad for you. Again, we don't have long-term research, but this is so far what they're saying. However, it doesn't mean that it's safe at all, because tobacco kills 1 in 2 people that use it. These cigarettes kill 1 in 2 people that use it. Like, nothing is more harmful practically than a cigarette. Cigarettes are so harmful. So really anything is kind of safer than a cigarette is kind of what we're going at right here. But so that's kind of the takeaway with adults. The other piece with adults is, does it help you quit smoking? The answer is no. It does not help you quit smoking. There's mixed results on that. The FDA does not approve it as a quit smoking device. Again, there's still harmful carcinogens in there, and there can be a lot of nicotine too. So it's recommended to quit smoking to use the typical nicotine replacement therapies like the patch and gum and counseling. So again, we do need more research. The other thing that I think people are really unaware of is that secondhand vape. If you can smell that, that's not safe either. It's like secondhand smoke. If you can smell that, you're inhaling those chemicals and those particles as well. And so this is something that's particularly concerning. From emerging research, we're seeing that parents particularly are vaping around youth inside in cars, not thinking anything of it. And again, we know youth are vaping around youth or maybe around babies, so that's not safe either. And if people care more about their dogs, like it's not safe for your dogs or cats too. So other dangers of e-cigarettes, we've seen this stuff explode, particularly like in people's pockets, stuff tends to go off. We also know nicotine poisoning. I talked about being nic sick, so that's from inhaling too much. You can also absorb the nicotine through your skin or like your eyes and stuff like that. So when people are, putting that e-liquid in or they drop it on their skin, you can actually absorb nicotine that way. Yeah, and I mean, little kids and animals, it's really not safe at all, and it can be potentially fatal if you end up drinking that liquid straight too. So I mentioned the marijuana a little bit, and I'll talk about it a lot more now because we are seeing a lot more people use vaping marijuana. So the liquid version of marijuana, which is typically THC oil, or also something called dabbing, which is vaping this like very strong marijuana as well. And so we know with those open systems where you can you put that e-liquid in, you put whatever you want, you can definitely put marijuana in there, the THC oil in there. And specifically those vape pens that I showed you with, that, the clear circle piece. Also, we know that with the Juul specifically, that you can actually open up the pod and you can put anything you want in there, like marijuana. There's stores also that sell the pods that have marijuana already in them, so Juul compatible marijuana pods. So those exist too. But yeah, so I mean, it's not only marijuana, other illicit drugs can be smoked in this stuff too. So that we're seeing that happen. Anything you want. I've heard kids have vaped alcohol, or gasoline was one of them, which is crazy. But I mean, it's not something that's often, definitely, but just be aware that it might not be nicotine or that. So how do you know if youth are vaping? So as that's getting passed around, you might smell something very sweet that's in front of you. This stuff tends to smell very sweet. So if someone just vaped, it might be kind of like a random sweet scent. Very sweet, kind of Bath and Body Works like, is how we like to describe. I also like to say that the boys' bathroom, if it smells good, then someone probably vaped in there, because that's not normal, or the boys' locker room. We also know that most of this stuff is abnormally sweet smelling, candy, fruity flavors. Sometimes you can't really smell anything at all. With the marijuana specifically, it's not as strong as when you're smelling, typical marijuana, like from a joint that people would do. It's a very faint scent of marijuana. How else to know? So just kind of, you're seeing the products right now, they kind of look like school products. So be nosy, stuff that looks like a USB might not be a USB. Something that's very common actually that you might notice now is finding the Juul pods, the discarded Juul pods, which I have a picture of right up there. Whether it be the caps that you can take off and you just see the caps, or the empty pods on the ground. That's something that we're seeing a lot of. You might see in the trashes as well around the school, who knows. And then the final thing to look out for is signs of nicotine addiction. If youth are kind of changing their attitudes, their social, what they like doing, if they seem to be changing, if they're more irritable, if they're restless, those are signs of nicotine addiction, and also withdrawal when they're irritable and restless. So that's something definitely to keep an eye out for if you notice any changes in your youth. So where do kids get this stuff? So this was a survey done from the Truth Initiative. It was an online survey of like 1,000 youth from across the United States. And what they ended up saying is most youth actually get these straight from their retailers, illegally. So retailers do sell to minors, and that's where most youth get this stuff. What we hear a lot too where youth get this from is social sources. So from friends that know someone, from an older sibling. I hear there's kind of like little businesses happening too in schools, and the person that sells the Juul pods, and you buy them from them. So that's kind of what we're seeing, these social sources. You kind of know your person. Also online, that's actually the least common, and the Attorney General in Massachusetts and kind of all over is cracking down more on internet sales, but that is a place that youth have gotten these. We know youth have also used Visa gift cards to get this stuff online, or order them to like Amazon locker rooms and or to another location to pick it up so it doesn't go to their parents' house. So these are ways that youth are getting this stuff. Or the other one too is bumming it off a friend. So maybe you don't own it. You don't own your Juul, but you have a friend that does, so you take a hit off of it like that. Okay, so now I'm going to transition into the part that's going to make you all very angry about how the tobacco industry is targeting youth. And what's so interesting, just from people that have worked in the tobacco prevention field for a while, is that these vaping companies literally took the same exact tactics that the tobacco industry used to hook people on their products. So it's the same exact products. So these are quotes from the tobacco industry back in the day that show that they were targeting young people. So what we know, as I talked about before, the younger you are, the younger you start using nicotine, the more likely you are to get hooked for life. So the industry has known that for a very long time, and that's why they're targeting youth, because youth, if they get started, they will be lifelong customers to the tobacco industry. So these young people are the most profitable people for the tobacco industry. So they want them to use their products. Today's teenagers, tomorrow's potential regular customer. The overwhelming majority of smokers first begin to smoke while in their teens. The industry has known this for a very long time. And so this just shows the increase in marketing and youth use. So the red graph is the money spent on e-cigarette advertising, and that blue line is youth use. More money spent on advertising, the more youth are using these products, and their advertising the e-cigarette advertising is directly to youth. So these are the industry's tactics. Industry's tactics from the tobacco industry has always been make their products sweet, make it cheap, and make it easy to get. And literally the vaping industry copied suit straight on, and they went even further in some cases. So a little background on sweet. In 2009, the FDA, they banned flavored cigarettes, except they exempted menthol due to lobbying purposes, but menthol is a flavor, menthol mint, but that's a whole other story that I could go into. But so they banned all these other flavored cigarettes, and this is because they had information from the tobacco industry that said they created flavored cigarettes with youth in mind, because these flavors mask the taste of tobacco, make it less harsh, and also make it seem harmless. So youth are more likely to use this stuff. So now we don't have these flavored cigarettes. However, this ban did not apply to any other tobacco product. It didn't apply to these little cigars that are in here. It didn't apply to chew. It didn't apply to e-cigarettes. It didn't apply to blunt wraps. So all these other tobacco products, it did not apply to. And so kind of after that ban, we saw this huge increase in all these other flavored tobacco products. And this is a tobacco industry tactic that these flavors are starter products. We know they're starter products. So this image is always kind of terrifying because there's over 15 tobacco products in here and it all looks like candy. And so that's done on purpose by the industry. And so kind of the big thing with the flavors is there's over 8,000 e-cigarette flavors, from cotton candy to like unicorn kisses to like all these it's really crazy, all these candy flavors. And we know that flavors appeal to youth and it makes it seem harmless. These youth would not be vaping tobacco flavored. Young girls would not be vaping tobacco flavored. That's just would never happen. So these flavors are a leading reason why youth are using these products. Like with Juul, mango is a really popular one. Mint's also really popular. Creme brulee, I think it's called cream now. Fruit medley. So this is stuff that we're seeing. Yeah, and these are just some examples that I've seen. The blue slushy one I saw that was actually by my apartment. And it kills me because blue slushies, like when I was younger, I'd go to the convenience store and get a blue slushie. And right next to the blue slushie machine is like all the tobacco products, right? In convenience stores. And now they have a blue slushie flavor. All right, the next tactic is cheap. We know the industry wants young people to use their products, and they know that they're very price sensitive. So one of the leading reasons that cigarette use is at an all-time low is because we taxed it like crazy to make it not unaffordable for young people. And the taxing is actually a leading reason why youth don't use cigarettes, because it's not affordable. However, we don't have these taxes on e-cigarettes, and there's all these discounts on this stuff. So for example, I bought one product for $1 online. They gave me free shipping. It was supposed to be $20 and like $13 shipping. I only got it for $1. Other one, $2. So it's just crazy, the discounts that we're seeing on this stuff, and it's meant to hook kids. And the final one is this stuff is easy to get. And when I say that, I also mean it's everywhere. It's in convenience stores, like I said, right next to the blue slushie machine, and gas stations. And guess what? I don't go to convenience stores or gas stations anymore, but kids still go there to get their slushies, to get their candy, to get their drinks. And adults typically don't go. So I actually encourage you guys to go check out what's behind the counters there, because it's kind of crazy. So this is actually one of the industry's biggest tactics, is to get this stuff everywhere because it normalizes it. And we know that the more kids see these products in stores, the more likely they are to start using. And so these are just examples. We're seeing Juul sold here signs, the $15 off Juul. That picture in the corner is a convenience store that literally looks like a vape shop that I've seen. So, and the whole other wall was all vaping products as well. So we're really seeing these vaping products everywhere. And then the other piece is that youth are seeing this stuff online too. They're seeing it on social media. It's really everywhere on social media. So that's actually one of the industry's tactics, using influencers and getting this stuff on social media. That's how they're a little bit updated. They're using social media. And this stuff is specifically, we know that these vaping companies are targeting youth, and I just wanted to highlight Juul, because people tend to think that Juul is targeting older adults. This was Juul's launch campaign. You saw it in the video as well. It was very youth-oriented, and it's actually something to highlight because people tend to have good thoughts about Juul and think that they're doing good things on youth prevention, but this was their marketing when they started. They were targeting youth. They used influencers, youth influencers, and there's all this information. So I encourage you guys and anyone else to actually look at Stanford. They have all the marketing from all these e-cigarette companies and Juul combined. It's something really interesting and quite angering to look at. Okay, so that's a big piece of kind of the education, and I want you guys to go away with actionable steps that you can take. So what can you do? And just some more information. So just to update on state laws, most people don't know this, but the state passed a few new tobacco regulations this year. They increased the legal sales age to 21 to buy any tobacco products, including e-cigarettes. What they also did was they included e-cigarettes in the definition of tobacco in the Smoke-Free Workplace Law, and also in the Education Reform Act. So that means where you can't smoke inside, you also can't vape. So those people you see vaping on the train or at bars and restaurants or at work, like that's illegal. It's like smoking. You're not supposed to do that. And the other thing that the law did was it banned the sale of tobacco in all pharmacies. Massachusetts was the first state to do this, actually, which is pretty cool. Because pharmacies are supposed to be like a healthcare place that make you feel better and give you medicine. So it's kind of counterintuitive that they're selling tobacco products that kill you. So that's great that we're doing that, and that also includes e-cigarettes. Like I said, e-cigarettes are a tobacco product due to the nicotine. So a really big step actually is to make sure that your town has updated tobacco regulations. So one thing that we recommend is limiting all flavored tobacco products, and we're actually encouraging mint, menthol, wintergreen too, to be moved to adult-only stores, so kids can't see this stuff. And it's really the shared responsibility of adults to make sure we're protecting kids from the industry and making sure we have everything in place to protect them. So this is one thing you can do. Also, you can cap the number. I don't know what Acton or Boxborough has actually off the top of my head. I know we have people from the health department here. But you can also cap the number of tobacco retailers in the town, so we're not seeing more of these open or vape shops open too. Oop, just skipped. The other thing is, so you guys came here tonight, so hopefully you learned a lot from me. Educate yourself. But if you want to learn more or tell other people where to go, these are key places. Google Surgeon General e-cigarettes or Centers for Disease Control e-cigarettes, and those are the most reputable sites that you can really get to learn more. The other piece is from the Massachusetts Tobacco Cessation and Prevention Program, which I said I work under. So it's more focused on Massachusetts, and that's at getoutrage.org. And so I just want to let you guys see, this is the homepage. So they have Get the Facts, where you can actually see more products and learn more facts. Tips for talking with your kids for parents. And for schools, is actually this whole school toolkit that has all this awesome information about prevention and resources. So I really encourage, especially people working in the schools, to read through that because it's really great. It has a lot of great info. There's free handouts you can order from the Massachusetts Health Promotion Clearinghouse. The other thing I really want to encourage is, so you guys came here, hopefully you learned a lot today, but there's still misperceptions out there. So if you do have local media channels that you use, whether it's personal or whether it's for work, please share resources. I'm happy to work with you as well. Part of my job is getting stuff in the media, so I have a bunch of stuff to use too, but really just getting this information out there and getting the facts straight. Social media, you can follow social media. It's Make Smoking History on Facebook and Twitter. Also, so a key piece for prevention is making sure the schools have best practice e-cigarette curriculums. So I'm not sure what you guys are doing, but this is what's recommended by the state. And the school toolkit, there's all these great resources in there. But that's really a key part of prevention to stop this epidemic, or to prevent this epidemic from getting even worse, to educate the kids in a best practice form. Something else I really want to highlight is the state's youth tobacco prevention program. It's called the 84 movement. So it's called the 84 movement because when the movement started in 2007, 84% of youth did not smoke cigarettes. So that's all changed now. So they're looking to rebrand and change the name, but it just hasn't happened yet. But that's why it's called the 84. But basically, youth educate their peers and community levels about the tobacco and vaping industry. And it's totally free to join, and if there's like a SAD chapter or any youth programs, you can sign up for free, and you get all these free trainings and also opportunities for grants and mini grants. So it's really easy to join, and I just want to say it again, it's really easy to join. You just have to do it online, and you get access to all of this. I actually, one of the youth that's in the 84, due to her involvement on the statewide leadership team, she was actually sent down to the Surgeon General's press conference on e-cigarettes, and she spoke alongside the Surgeon General. So because of that, she's very involved, and then she also got involved with Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. And we also have kids changing local policy. So it's pretty cool to see what this program does. It's best practice-based. Again, highly recommend for peer-to-peer education to get the youth involved. So for you guys, for adults talking with kids, just some key points. Again, provide them with the straight facts. You have those reputable sources that I talked about too. Tell them about the nicotine. Tell them that it's highly addictive, that they're more likely to get addicted because they're younger. Also tell them, dispel those myths about the water vapor. Everyone thinks it's water vapor, right? It's not water vapor. It's an aerosol, like hairspray. So dispel those myths. Have them go to the Surgeon General's website, check that out as well. And actually, one of the big things that is more important to talk about is tell them how the industry is targeting them. A lot of kids, they don't care about long-term health consequences. It's not going to happen to them. They don't see that. It's too far out, right? But tell them that the industry is specifically targeting them to make money off of them getting addicted to something for life. They get really angry about it. Kids don't like getting conned. And so that's actually a piece of the best practice curriculum that I'm talking about. It has kids analyze the tobacco and vaping industry's marketing tactics. So again, have your youth Google Juul marketing, 2015 launch campaign. And it's really important for parents and caregivers to know that you're actually number one influence on your kid's decision to use alcohol, other drugs, tobacco. So even if it feels like they can't hear you, or if it's an awkward conversation, the more you disapprove of something, the less likely they are to use it. So talk to your kids. Let them know this stuff isn't safe. Let them know you don't approve of it. Again, they hear you, even though it might not feel like it. Get those in. It's also important to make sure that you're having a judgment-free conversation. Try to make it open. Ask them what they see. Ask them what's happening. Ask them what they think. I like to say that Juul, I don't know if that Juul commercial still comes on KISS 108, but if that comes on, or if you see someone vaping and you're in the car, have a conversation about that right now, right then. Say, oh, what do you think about that? And then you can kind of organically start there. Okay, so this is actually what your superintendent was talking about before. This is the new youth campaign from the state. So basically it only launched a few weeks ago. So what this state did is they did focus groups with youth from across Massachusetts in middle school and high school. And what the kids said was, we don't associate cigarettes with e-cigarettes. We know cigarettes are harmful. And also, addiction's not really on our radar. We don't really realize that these e-cigarettes and vapes are addictive. So that's kind of how this campaign emerged. The other thing that the youth said was, don't do anything fancy. They're like, just please give us the straight facts. And so that's why this emerged. You're getting the straight facts from here. So there's a poster, I saw it hung up right there. There's also a double-sided handout that has the facts on it. And then these mirror clings that you mentioned were in the bathrooms. So just some of the facts that the youth will be seeing. So now that you guys know this stuff is here, like, use this stuff to talk with your kids about too. You have some of these facts. And just what else is happening with this campaign is there's all these online social media ads that you'll see from this stuff, including Instagram, Snapchat, Spotify, YouTube animated video as well, that we're seeing April through June. So this stuff your kids should hopefully be seeing. Then I said all those handouts and the mirror clings. There's also a website. So it's mass.gov/vaping, and it's on that stuff as well. There's also an Instagram account called Get the Vape Facts. And there's a 15-second video, which I'm going to show you guys real quick. And it's something, too, like for the school. I don't know if you guys have, like, some sort of morning announcements or, like, screens that you can put this on. But it's really quick, so I'll just show it to you guys. Can get it. Should be the other tab. Yep.
Did you know vape pods can have as much nicotine as 20 cigarettes? And nicotine can harm your brain, including your memory and ability to learn. Vapes and cigarettes may be different, but they have the same dangers for young people. Get the facts at mass.gov/vaping.
Yeah, so that's that. But I thought I'd show that to see what the kids are seeing, and that kind of resided with them. So something else to keep in mind. And then I just have one more resource for you guys, which is quit vaping resources. So if you guys do have a young person that's addicted, I do want to give you some resources, and then I'll open it up for Q&A. So the Truth Initiative that I've talked about a few times, they actually developed this texting program to help youth quit. And basically you enter your age, and then they help you set a quit date, and then they send you these tailored facts to help you quit and get through your cravings and things like that. So I actually signed up for it, and it was actually pretty good. So, and it's tailored to Juul and vaping. So that's kind of the first of its kind we've seen for vape products. There's also an app that says Quitting that goes with it. And the other thing that's out there is, so there's the Massachusetts helpline or quit line for tobacco users. So it's kind of the free state quit line that every state has that kind of helps people make a quit plan for tobacco products. This is now available for people as young as 12 years old and for all nicotine products, including e-cigarettes. So youth or an adult or someone could call and they can help make a quit plan and get free phone counseling. If you're 18 or older, you can get free nicotine replacement therapy, like the gum or patch, like I mentioned as well. And anyone can call or get advice too, even if you're not the person that's trying to quit, just for some information. The other piece with this is if your young person is addicted, so these are just extra resources, but it really encourage you to go to your pediatrician to get their advice as well. Some pediatricians can prescribe nicotine replacement therapy to those under 18 years old. It's at their discretion, but we are seeing that more. Yeah, so those are, I mean, unfortunately, we don't have that many great resources for quitting right now because it's so new, so there's nothing that's too evidence-based, but this is kind of what we have. But yes, so that's it from me, and we'll open it up to questions and discussion. And that's just my contact